When most people hear the acronym RICO, they immediately go to a very specific place mentally.
Oh yeah, the mob.
Absolutely. You're thinking The Godfather, maybe The Sopranos, guys in pinstripe suits meeting in the back of some social club, planning rackets.
It stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It was literally designed to break the mob.
Exactly. But the deep dive we're taking today, it has absolutely nothing to do with the mafia, at least not in that traditional sense.
No fedoras, no Tommy guns.
No. Instead, we are looking at a massive civil lawsuit. It's filed in federal court. And the defendants here, they wear expensive suits to high-rise offices in Manhattan. The enterprise isn't a crime family.
No, it's alleged to be a law firm.
It's a shocking pivot, really.
It's a fascinating and honestly a pretty disturbing one. What we're looking at is a complaint filed by the Greater New York Mutual Insurance Company. Let's just call them GNY for short.
GNY.
And they are suing a prominent law firm, Subin Associates, along with just this huge network of doctors, runners, financiers.
And we should be clear, this isn't some small-time scam. We're not talking about one person faking a slip and fall at a grocery to get $5,000.
No.
The source material for this dive describes something industrial. We're talking hundreds of lawsuits, tens of millions of dollars. A system so complex it supposedly operated like a Fortune 500 company dedicated to fraud.
Industrial is the perfect word. When you read the complaint, you realize this wasn't just, opportunistic. It was systemic.
A machine.
Yes. GNY alleges this enterprise weaponized the entire civil justice system. They didn't just wait for accidents to happen. They allegedly built a machine to monetize human bodies.
So our mission today is to take that machine apart piece by piece, to really understand how you can manufacture millions of dollars in fake injury claims right under the nose of the court system.
And it all starts with the raw material.
The people.
Right. For a personal injury lawsuit to work, you need a plaintiff. Now, in the real world, you get hurt, you Google a lawyer, you call them up. But in this alleged scheme, that whole dynamic is flipped. The lawyer or the enterprise finds you.
And that brings us to the first gear in the machine, the runner. The complaint spends a lot of time on a man named Jorge Lupi.
Now, runner sounds like a guy delivering coffee or something, but it is not that at all.
Not even close.
No. In the legal world, a runner is someone who illegally solicits business for a law firm. It is. It's completely unethical and illegal in New York for lawyers to pay non-lawyers to go out and recruit clients.
But the allegation here is that Jorge Lupi was the engine of this entire scheme.
He was the main recruiter. And he wasn't just, handing out business cards on street corners.
No, the level of integration here is what really got me. Lupi allegedly had an office inside one of the law firms named in the suit.
The Park firm, yeah.
He had a Park firm email address. He was even listed as the attorney on some of the medical intake forms. I mean, if I'm a client, I walk into an office, there's a guy in a suit behind a desk. I'm going to assume he's my lawyer.
Of course. And that's exactly what the clients, many of whom are recent immigrants, maybe undocumented, that's what they assumed. But Lupi isn't a lawyer.
Not a lawyer.
In fact, the source material says Lupi is a convicted felon, and he was recently deported to Venezuela.
And yet, for years, he was allegedly sitting in Midtown Manhattan, basically directing traffic for this whole litigation machine. But this is the detail that really illustrates the cover-up for me.
Yes.
The RILA story. This feels like it's pulled from a bad detective novel.
It really does. So, Subin Associates is in court. The judge and the other lawyers are pressing them. Who referred this case to you?
Which they have to answer.
They legally have to answer, but they can't say Jorge Lupi because he's a known runner. He's a felon.
Right. That's admitting to a crime right there on the record.
So they provide a name, RILA, and they give an address for this Mr. LA, 9 Wimbledon Lane in Great Neck, New York.
Sounds legitimate. Nice suburban address.
Except, investigators investigate. They ran the address. And 9 Wimbledon Lane wasn't the home of RILA.
It was where Jorge Lupi's car was registered.
Exactly.
That is just spectacularly sloppy tradecraft.
Yeah.
You invent a ghost, but you tie the ghost's address to your runner's actual car.
It's sloppy, but it's also very telling. It suggests what lawyers call consciousness of guilt. They knew they had to build a wall between the firm and the recruiter. They literally invented a person to keep the judge from looking at Lupi.
Okay, so Lupi recruits the clients. He finds vulnerable people, non-English speakers, undocumented workers who had maybe a minor accident. He brings them in. But a bruised knee or a sore back isn't worth $1 million.
Not even close
To get the big payouts, you need big injuries.
Exactly. You need objective medical evidence. And this leads us to the second phase of the operation, the medical mill.
The complaint calls it a fraudulent treatment protocol. I hate that word protocol here because it sounds so clinical, so legitimate.
But here it really just means script, a playbook.
So what's the play?
The claimant is sent to what the lawsuit calls gatekeeper clinics, places like Metro Point or Allboro Medical. The job of these clinics, according to the suit, isn't to heal the patient.
It's to paper the file.
It's to paper the file. They need to generate records that justify expensive testing.
And the most important test is the MRI. Now, this is the part I think will surprise a lot of people. We tend to trust MRIs. It's a picture of your insides. It's science. If the report says tear, there's a tear. How do you fake that?
You don't fake the image, you fake the interpretation of the image. The complaint focuses heavily on a few groups of radiologists, specifically Kolb Radiology and the Rand Group. The allegation is that they systematically misread the scans.
Okay, give me the layman's version. What does a misread actually mean here?
Okay, so think about a 50-year-old construction worker. He's been lifting heavy things for 30 years. If you take an MRI of his back or his knees, you're going to see wear and tear. The discs in his back might be a little dry, there might be some arthritis. Doctors call this degeneration. It's like having wrinkles or gray hair, but on the inside. It's totally natural.
I probably have some of that right now and just don't know it.
Oh, we all do.
Go.
But what these radiologists would allegedly do is look at that gray hair, that natural degeneration, and write a report calling it an acute tear or a herniation caused by a recent trauma.
So they're taking a pre-existing condition, basically aging, and just rebranding it as a catastrophic injury from an accident.
Precisely. And they were allegedly doing this at such a high volume that sometimes they just stopped looking at the images at all.
Wait, what?
There's this really incredible detail in the complaint about one of the main radiologists, Dr. Kolb.
The signature stamp.
Yes, the signature stamp.
Oh.
The allegation is that Dr. Kolb was literally out of the office on vacation.
Wow.
And reports were still being issued, with his signature on them, diagnosing tears, herniations.
So he just had a stamp.
He allegedly used a signature stamp, just stamping them out.
It's like, you get a tear and you get a tear. It's almost comical until you remember what comes next. Because a fake report is just paper. But that paper is the ticket to the operating room.
And this is where the scheme, in my opinion, turns from just financial fraud into actual physical battery. We have to talk about the surgeons.
The surgeon defendants. This includes big names, like the New York Spine Institute. The complaint alleges they performed invasive surgeries, we're talking knee scopes, spinal fusions, based only on those stamped reports.
Now, you might ask, well, if the radiologist says there's a tear, isn't the surgeon just supposed to operate?
I would ask that. I'm not a doctor. The report says fix this. I expect them to fix it.
But the standard of care, especially for a spine surgeon, is that you must review the actual films yourself. You don't trust the paper, you look at the picture.
And if they had?
The complaint argues that if these surgeons had actually looked at the films, they would have seen that the so-called tear was just arthritis. There was nothing to operate on.
But they operated anyway. Why? I mean, why risk your license, risk a malpractice suit, to do a surgery that isn't needed?
Money. Pure and simple. These surgeries bill at massive rates, and the complaint points to evidence of, kickbacks.
Right.
In a related case involving one of the surgeons, Dr. Gerling, investigators found a check with a very suspicious memo line.
Check for a loan.
Check for a loan. The plaintiffs argue this is just transparent code. It wasn't a loan. It was a payment for the referral.
So everyone gets paid. The runner who brings in the body, the radiologist who papers the file, the surgeon who does the cutting.
Everyone gets a piece.
Which, it leaves one big question for me. Where is the money for all this coming from? We're talking about low-income workers. They don't have 50 grand sitting around for a spinal fusion. Who pays for this?
That brings us to the final piece of the business model, the funding defendants. Companies like Cartiga and Pegasus, this is the fuel that keeps the engine running. They provide something called litigation funding.
Is that like those commercials? It's my money and I need it now.
Sort of, but a much more predatory version. These companies front the cash for the medical procedures. But the terms are draconian. The interest rates often exceed 40% per year.
40%. That's loan shark territory. That's credit card debt on steroids.
And the contracts are these complex legal documents, often in English, even when the claimant only speaks Spanish. They're signing away their future settlement.
But does the client actually see any of that cash? Does the injured worker walk out with a bag of money?
Usually, no. The money flows directly from the funding company to the doctors and the surgery centers. It pays for the unnecessary surgery up front.
So let me get this straight. The funding company pays the doctor. The doctor performs an unneeded surgery on the patient, and the patient is left with a physical scar and a massive debt to the funding company.
That's it. That debt is a lien. So let's say the case settles for $100,000. First, the funding company takes their cut, the principal, plus that 40% interest. Then the lawyer takes the third. The doctor's already been paid.
And the client, the person who actually got cut open, is left with what?
Often, pennies. Sometimes nothing at all.
It's a wealth extraction machine. And the client is just the host body.
It's a pyramid scheme where the person at the bottom pays with their physical health.
To make this more concrete, let's look at a specific case study from the source material. The story of claimant A, a 19-year-old named Freddie Fajardo. This really shows how the story gets twisted.
It really does. So it's November 2021. Freddie trips on some debris at a construction site.
Okay, happens all the time.
EMS gets to the scene. He's lucid. The records clearly state he told them he fell 10 steps, but he did not hit his head and he did not lose consciousness. He goes to the ER, same story, discharged a few hours later.
So he's banged up, but he's okay.
Then he gets recruited into the scheme. A few days later, he goes to Metro Point, one of those gatekeeper clinics, and suddenly, the story in the records, it magically transforms.
How so?
Now, the notes say he fell head first. Now, they claim he had a loss of consciousness.
Why invent the head injury?
Because a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, increases the potential settlement value exponentially. It can turn a $50,000 case into a potential $1 million case overnight.
And they erased his history too, right? I read that he denied any prior accidents.
Right. At the ER, he said he'd never been hurt before, but investigators found he'd been in a car accident just 2 months prior. The scheme needs the victim to be a blank slate, so they just deleted his history.
And then came the surgery.
Yes. Despite an MRI that actually showed just a sprain and a cyst, the report was somehow altered to claim a meniscal tear. He was sent for knee surgery, but here's a very specific legal detail that matters.
Where they sent him?
They sent him to New Jersey for the surgery.
Wait, New Jersey. He's a New York claimant. The accident was in New York. Why cross state lines?
This is the hook. This is what makes it a federal RICO case. By transporting the claimant across state lines to facilitate the fraud, they triggered the Travel Act.
The Travel Act.
It's a federal law that forbids using interstate commerce to promote an unlawful activity. That car ride to New Jersey turned what might have been a local insurance scam into a federal racketeering offense. It gave the insurers the jurisdiction to drop the hammer.
And it seems like they really did. For a long time, this was just business as usual. But then things started to unravel. The source material describes a sudden panic over at Subin Associates.
The insurers, GNY and others, they started connecting the dots. They saw the same runner, the same doctors, the same boilerplate reports over and over. They started fighting back. And when the heat got turned up, Subin Associates, they ran.
The mass exodus.
In early 2024, in just a 4-month period, Subin Associates withdrew from over 120 lawsuits.
Let's just pause on that number. A lawyer withdrawing from one case is a big deal. Withdrawing from 120, that's evacuation.
It's basically a confession on paper. They cited concerns with the referral sort. They were trying to purge all the cases connected to Jorge Lupi before the courts could look too closely.
But you can't just unfile the suits. You can't unring that bell.
Exactly. And that leads to the final, almost absurd phase of this, the shell game. The complaint alleges that as the Subin firm became toxic, the partners tried to dissolve it and just restart under a new name.
Enter Cercino LLP.
Right. This new law firm pops up. But when their website went live, investigators noticed something a little funny.
It was a clone.
A total clone. Same attorney bios, same professional headshots, and most damning of all, they were operating out of the exact same office building on the exact same floor as the old Subin firm.
So they literally just changed the plaque on the door. We aren't Subin anymore, we're Cercino. Totally different guys, we promise.
Essentially, the lawsuit calls it a fraudulent conveyance. They were allegedly trying to move assets and cases to a clean company to avoid the judgments they knew were coming.
The arrogance of it is what's stunning. To think you could just hit refresh and nobody would notice that all the parts of the machine are exactly the same.
It really just speaks to how profitable this scheme must have been. They were willing to burn down a major firm and rebuild it overnight just to keep the money flowing.
So we've walked through the whole ecosystem here. The fake aliases, the stamp reports, the predatory loans, the clumsy cover-up. But I want to bring this back to the person listening. If GNY Insurance loses $20 million, why should I care? That feels like a fight between giants.
It's never just between them, though. We all pay for this. It's an invisible tax. When insurers lose millions to fraud, they don't just eat that loss. They pass it on.
So our premiums go up.
Premiums go up for every driver on the road. And it hits the cost of living, too. Think about construction in New York. The cost of insuring a construction site is astronomical, partly because of these kinds of staged accidents.
Which makes building anything more expensive.
It makes housing more expensive. It makes infrastructure more expensive. It makes your rent higher.
And then there's the human cost. We can't forget Freddie Ferrardo.
Freddie is the real tragedy here. He's 19 years old. He was convinced by people in suits, people he trusted, people he thought were helping him, to undergo a surgery he likely didn't even need.
And that has consequences.
Huge consequences. Surgery leaves scar tissue. It creates arthritis later in life. He now has a permanent pre-existing condition because of this. And financially, he's probably drowning in debt from a case that's now worthless because the fraud's been exposed.
The very system that was supposed to make him whole was used to break him down for parts.
That's a haunting way to put it. And it's exactly what this enterprise did. It treated human beings as raw material for billing codes.
Well, on that sobering note, I want to leave you with one last thing to think about. We know about this alleged enterprise because they got caught, they got sloppy with the car registration, they filed too many suits too quickly.
They got greedy.
But the structure runner, clinic, surgeon, funder, it's modular. It's a business plan. If a major law firm can withdraw from over 100 cases and just try to change the name on the door, how many other enterprises are operating right now in your city using this exact same playbook but just keeping their heads down a little bit lower?
That is the question that keeps fraud investigators awake at night.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
See you next time.